Who owns Tetris? It's a rhetorical question, but really, when I've been able to make this many episodes of this series already, with the potential's idea list as long as my arm, who really owns Tetris? What does a game have to do to be classed as an iterative work? Or a derivative work? When is a game a copy? When is a game a homage or a pastiche? Tetraminos by Sanook Games is a soulless Tetris-alike. Its additions amount to little more than odd-shaped blocks and a strange scoring mechanic that awards more points as you combo chains of colours in your line clears. There is nothing else to say about it. It plays like classic Tetris, except without the precision of the core game. It's unlicensed. Of course it's unlicensed. And yet it's close enough in execution that some would see it and some would call it Tetris. So who owns Tetris? Damian Yerrick would argue that the true answer is no one. A homebrew developer, Yerrick, or Teppels, as he was known in the modding and homebrew community, would produce a version of Tetris known as Lockjaw for PC, Game Boy Advance and DS. It was an entirely customisable version of Tetris that let you set everything from rotation rules, to well size, to how T-spins are calculated, to how hold pieces are released, to how tetraminos are shuffled, to the weight of in-game gravity. It was a Tetris toolkit that was adopted by players looking to up their competitive game. In 2008, when the game was still maintained, it was described in Yerrick's own words as such. Lockjaw is a tetramino stacking game that lets you set the rules. It's a free software implementation of the Soviet Mind Game, a highly popular computer puzzle game that involves guiding tetraminos into a well. Yerrick would go on to liken Lockjaw to software that aped commercial alternatives but with a general public license. Think the unfortunately named GIMP when viewed alongside Adobe Photoshop, OpenOffice when viewed alongside Microsoft Office. Lockjaw was an effort to create a free alternative to something that had existed for so long and in so many permutations that it felt public domain, even if it ostensibly wasn't. By 2013, Lockjaw had been expunged from the web. Seeing how litigious the Tetris company seemed to have become, Yerrick took the decision to remove the game from the public domain, but left searing commentary in its place on his personal website. He said, "What destroys the market is monopoly. Mr. Pajitnov and his partner Henk Rogers want Tetris to become an internationally competitive sport. A policy against free software makes this that much harder. Imagine if there were a basketball company, LLC, that could sue a city or school district for copyright infringement for putting a basketball court with correct dimensions into a city park or school gymnasium. There are multiple competing suppliers of basketball and chess equipment, unlike software for playing Tetris. This is why chess is a sport and Tetris is not. Chess has no owner." Lockjaw was not Yerrick's only venture into Tetris. In the year 2000, long before Lockjaw's Tetris toolkit was released, Yerrick worked on a project for home computers called Tetris on Drugs. The game aimed to simulate playing Tetris under the influence of recreational drugs, with trippy background effects work, a playfield that scaled and warped, and visuals that would phase and blur over the course of a run, In the mid-2000s, Yerrick would port a version of this game to the Game Boy Advance, shown in the footage here. Its name would ultimately change to Lockjaw, the Overdose, to unify Yerrick's work on Tetris and bring it in line with the later release of its more mature, customisable cousin. In itself, it's an extremely accomplished piece of Game Boy Advance homebrew, and even if the visuals can be distracting to the point of mild nausea, I found myself really enjoying the additional challenge the visual effects added to an otherwise vanilla game of Tetris. Yerrick alluded in his statement on Free Software that Pajitnov's stance hampered Tetris's potential to evolve into a properly competitive sport. What it doesn't mention though, and what Tetris on Drugs ultimately proves, is how Pajitnov's stance also harms the ability to let games, and Tetris specifically, mature as pieces of art. In all forms, art is furthered by borrowing, breaking, iterating, reinterpreting, recontextualising. This game may be little more than Tetris filtered through the lens of stoner culture, but the recognisable elements of a piece of software synonymous with the puzzle game genre, and the exaggerated effects of recreational drug use popularised in film, TV and other media relentlessly, gives it enough value to be worth talking about. Evolving media and art often requires pre-existing knowledge to enjoy. Tetris, at over 35 years old, has now become a cultural building block. It's as recognisable as Mickey Mouse. It is widely understood and quoted both in its own medium as well as others. So who owns Tetris? We do.